Transcribing jazz solos is an absolute must if you want to take it seriously. You can kind of throw chords and scales at jazz tunes and get so far, but if you really want to progress and you really want to develop your ear, your technique and your creativity as a musician, then transcribing is a must. In this video, I'd like to give you my recommendations of some excellent beginner jazz solos to ideally transcribe if you're new. If these are a bit above you, then you could work them out using a transcription. However, I really recommend that everyone gives transcribing these a go first. Hey everybody, Jamie Holroyd here, helping you learn jazz guitar. Welcome to the channel. If you're new around here and you want a structured guide to learning jazz guitar, then please check out my free beginner jazz guitar class, which is linked and listed below. There's several 4K videos, a big PDF and a proven coherent guide to helping you get started learning jazz guitar. Before I get on with the list, I'd just like to bring up a very important point which a lot of people kind of ask me about when I'm teaching transcription. So I've basically got this kind of transcription thing to, 3 T's, which really help kind of refine it and basically kind of give you the lowdown of it. The first T is to actually transcribe what you're listening to. So with any solo, working it out, and you can get these kind of slow down apps like Transcribe is the one that I used to use, the amazing slow downer. There's many of them. All you have to do is just basically Google slow down apps or music slow down apps or something like that. Now, I recommend this with a hint of caution. If you are going to use these, the best feature I think on these apps is that you can just loop one phrase at the regular tempo over and over again. If you slow down a jazz phrase, you can sometimes take away its authenticity and its application, so you're not really hearing it right. It's like, if I was speaking very slow like this, then the implication of what I'm trying to say gets completely lost, So if you hear a phrase that's, kind of already, you're kind of taking a phrase, an abstract phrase from a solo, and you're slowing it down, then, it's not really going to do you much good if you basically learn a phrase wrong, So that being said, if you're transcribing something very fast, which is technically difficult, and you wanting to play along with it, then I found that on a very fast tune, if you basically bring it down maybe 20%, it doesn't really affect it that much. But certainly if you're kind of transcribing something that's in the, anything from ballad to medium tempo, it can really kind of confuse how you hear things really. So that's one thing that you need to know about the actual transcription. The second thing is the technique of playing it. The second T is the technique. Now, when you work something out, you've got to be able to do a couple of things. Play it with a metronome, play it against a backing track, and play it with the original recording. All 3 of those are vital if you want to get the maximum progress from doing one of these. To begin with, just play it by yourself first. It's much easier to do that. Then you want to maybe try and play it with the original artist, because that's going to really help you refine it. But you must be able to play it with a click or a backing track, because if you can't do that and you just want to improvise over the standard of the transcription or the changes that you have transcribed, then you're not going to be able to hear these things. When you try and play what you've transcribed against these chord changes, you need to be able to execute them and hear them. So the technique is a very important part of the transcription, I think. The last T is the theory, which basically means the analysis of what's basically happened. So when you've transcribed this down, and you don't have to do complicated kind of computer scores like what you see on this channel, you can literally just kind of scribble some tab on a paper if you like. It's more the important act of basically knowing what time signature it's in, separating the bar lines, writing out the tab, writing out the chords, that kind of thing. Now, ultimately, if you can transcribe in music notation, that really is a good end goal, because, jazz musicians really like to do that. But if you're a beginner, you can't do all of these things, can you? If you're not good at reading and you want to try and transcribe something in music notation, which is already challenging to transcribe, and then you're having to work out a music notation system, then there's a chance that you could give up there. So if you just write it out in tab, there's probably only you that's going to see it, or you might show a couple of friends. So it's not really important that you kind of have a perfectly looking musical score when you transcribe something. Okay, those are the 3 T's over with. So if you've got all that down and you understand that process, let's have a look at some jazz solos which are great to begin transcribing. The first jazz solo on this list is a classic Miles Davis solo. Miles Davis was probably one of the most, if not the most important figure in jazz music. I really can't do justice to him in this small segment, but if you haven't heard Miles Davis and you're watching this video, then check him out, read a few books, watch a few documentaries about him. In short, he basically kind of, pioneered innovation throughout jazz over the ages. He kind of did, the bebop thing, the cool thing, the fusion thing. You need to really check him out. So the example here that we're basically looking at is from his recording of Autumn Leaves, which is on the Cannonball Adderley Something Else album, which is a phenomenal jazz album if you don't have it. So let's have a listen to that solo now, and then we'll see what we think. One of the great things about Miles Davis playing is that he basically had the full spectrum covered. He could kind of play over something like rhythm changes and get all the chord changes and play very technical and just like a bebop player. But as you heard on something like this, he was also the master at playing very melodic, very slow, leaving space. And these are all very, very important lessons to learn for seasoned jazz players, but especially for beginner jazz players. The good thing about this solo is that it basically, for the first 8 bars, it almost exclusively uses the G minor pentatonic scale. So all guitar players know that. You've just got to be able to kind of get a finger in for it, listen to what Miles is doing, and try and work out the notes from that. Beyond that, he does go into playing the chord changes and things more, but the good thing about this, and when you analyse any solo, you've got to be able to do it from a melodic, rhythmic and harmonic perspective. So melodic, this is the absolute key to a melodic solo because it's almost got like a film noir-like quality to it. It's kind of got an atmosphere, a dark sound, and for some of this, it's almost like he's playing on the original melody of the tune. So it's absolutely beautiful what he's able to do with it. You've just got to get it underneath your fingers and have a listen to it. Have a listen to the original recording because it really kind of does sound a little bit more articulate on trumpet. With some of the sustained notes that you hear on trumpet, they're much harder to replicate on guitar. So you've got to check out that to get the melodic perspective. The rhythmic perspective's fantastic also. It's a great lesson on phrasing. He hardly ever starts phrases on beat 1. He's always playing into chord changes. He's always using space. All that kind of thing is just, jazz 101 when you want to learn how to phrase. And it's something that if you listen to that, you're going to get instantly. The last thing is harmonically as well, harmonics. So as I said, there's times where, in my opinion, he's barely even referencing the chord changes. He's playing off the melody. He's basically kind of playing in the key center, but he hints at them in the most kind of appropriate and beautiful way. It's almost like he's kind of playing the tune and the tune's not playing him. He's kind of dictating when he wants to kind of be in on these chord changes because it's something that supports the improvisation and his story as a whole. Once again, very important lessons for beginner jazz players to learn and even seasoned jazz players. So that's the first solo, Miles Davis solo on Autumn Leaves. The next solo on this list is by Chet Baker and it is over It Could Happen to You. It's from the Chet Baker Sings album. It's only a short solo, but it is so direct, so melodic, so beautiful. Chet is perhaps maybe more known as being a trumpet player, but he was a phenomenal singer and scat soloist as well. So let's check out Chet Baker's solo on It Could Happen to You. This one works very nicely on the guitar. As you could hear there, you can almost stay in basically one position for the entire solo, and this is a wonderful solo to basically learn about phrasing, to learn about space, to learn about lines. You know, this one is a little bit more kind of lines driven than the Miles Davis solo. I think there's a few kind of, you know, excellent minor 2-5-1 phrases, long 2-5-1 phrases. Once again, like I said at the beginning, you've got to analyze what's going on here. You could, in theory, you know, just work it all out and hear these phrases, and then, you know, in a moment of sheer kind of, you know, or a miracle, should I say, that they might just come out in your playing when you're improvising. But for me, mortals like me, we have to figure out what's going on and try and kind of put them in our playing. They might sound a little bit forced to begin with, but as you begin to hear them, then you'll get better judgment of how to use them and vary them melodically. So that is the second solo there, Chet Baker's solo on It Could Happen to You. You should really try and sing this solo, actually. If you can sing it, that's an amazing thing to do, and then work it out on guitar. Much harder to do, but ultimately the sounds are always in your head that you're trying to get out on the instrument. A very fun exercise, which lots of my students enjoy doing on this particular tune, is basically improvising the second half of the solo chorus. As I said, Chet basically solos over the first half of the tune, 16 bar solo over a 32 bar tune, and then he basically brings the melody back in on the second half of the song. So what I say to my students is try and compose your own solo on the second half. Imagine Chet had actually gone into an entire chorus. How would he continue that solo, and can you creatively develop it? And because you've kind of started by playing Chet's solo, you feel like you've got a really good kind of start to a solo, and then you just got to finish it and see if you can kind of keep it going in a stylistically coherent manner. I've just realized that we're 2 videos in and I haven't mentioned any guitar players yet. So 2 jazz guitar players to check out if you wanted to get into transcription, which are more accessible than others, are Kenny Burrell and Grant Green. This first Kenny Burrell solo, which I'm going to talk about, is from his classic Midnight Blue album, and it's over a 3-chord blues called Chitlin's Konkani. It's an interesting one, this, because that particular album is sometimes considered too jazzy for blues players and too bluesy for jazz players, but I think it's an excellent lesson in how to use the minor pentatonic and blues scale in a jazz way, playing with a jazz touch and basically using things like slides and slurs to sound more like a jazz guitar player playing blues language rather than using string bends and things. So let's have a listen to Chitlin's Konkani. I don't think Kenny Burrell adds those chords on the original recording, but it's something I like to do. It's very fun to do, and it really kind of helps the solo sound full. But once again, you could hear without those chords, there's quite a bit of space, which is a lesson from all these solos. The good thing about this is that the dominant 7 sharp 9 chord is basically used on all 3 chords, so it's a very easy progression to pick up, and it uses C blues scale. And Kenny's very good at kind of referencing the chord changes with blues. He's not just kind of, you know, mindlessly playing a minor pentatonic over all those chords. He knows, or he hears what chord tones work better over certain chords. So it's a really great solo to learn if you're from a blues background. Try and work this one out by ear, because it does use all the blues kind of language and stuff. It can be a little bit quick. You know, I've found that when I've taught it before, that most players kind of find it hard to get it bang on 100% tempo, but even if you can kind of get this to 70 or 80%, then that's still a good achievement for a beginner player to do. We're going to finish this list with another guitar player, Grant Green. We're going to check out Grant Green's solo over the Charlie Parker Jazz Blues, Cool Blues. This particular solo is probably the fastest of the bunch, which is good and it's bad. It's good because it's easy to get the timing of this, because there tends to be less space to work out. So when you're playing this against a backing track or a metronome, it's much easier to get together. But of course, because it is faster, it can be hard to get all the phrases bang on. This is a masterclass in combining blues and R&B licks. That's what Grant was kind of known for. and around this period he was very good at doing that. So you'll often hear a blues phrase, then a Charlie Parker phrase, so it's a fantastic idea to do this solo if you want to try and outline chord changes in a jazz blues, try and get some more bebop phrases underneath your fingers. It's just the first chorus that's covered here, but there's so much knowledge and so many lessons within that one solo that it can keep you going if you apply the concepts correctly in your own practice for several weeks. So that concludes this video. I'd love to know what you think is a good solo to get started with jazz. Did you find this list useful? Please let me know in the comments, and if you could subscribe to this channel, that would be wonderful. And there are resources for all the jazz solos covered in this video downstairs in the description. So yeah, transcribe them yourself first, but if you want some answers to check them with, then check out the links. I also have an analysis, which that often is the kind of most tricky thing that students struggle with, is looking at these and being able to see what's going on to kind of, really understand what these artists were thinking, so that you can effectively use these concepts in your own playing. It's the most important step, I think, because it kind of pushes your own creativity. So if that's something that sounds appealing, then please check out the links below.